My name is Jason Wilkins, and I'd like to welcome you to Canyon United Methodist Church and our Holy Week sermon series. This is Wednesday of the Holy Week sermon series, and if you've missed the past two, please go check those out. We would greatly appreciate it. My verse today is going to be Matthew 26, verses 3 to 5. I'll be reading from the ESV. Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and plotted together in order to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they said, not during the feast, lest there be an uproar among the people. I've grown up in the church. I've grown up reading the Bible or being read the Bible, for the most part. And it's really easy from our standpoint we know the story. Jesus comes to Jerusalem. He's lauded as king, as the new Messiah. There are throngs out there to greet him. They're laying palms down, laying their robes down. He starts to teach at the temple. He clears the temple first, and he causes quite an uproar without effort, really. All he's doing is he's speaking the truth. He's speaking something that resonates with the people, that the people are longing to hear. And the crowds have a relief in them that they're able to understand, they're able to reach it. For the longest time, there was a barrier to entry for that. There were laws and rules that they had to abide by that were strict, and there were hundreds. And Jesus comes to town and he says, the way to my Father is through me. The way to my Father is through love. And the way we read the Bible from our current day and state, the way we read it from our context, tends to vilify the Sadducees and the Pharisees. But what I want to do is I want to take a moment and read it from the context of what might have been happening. I am not a scholar, I'm not a historian, but I do like these thought exercises. I like to put myself in different places, in different scenarios, to see what my choice would have been, where my vulnerabilities lie, where I need to work on myself, or what would cause it a different outcome. So let's start it off like this. The Pharisees, the chief priests, the scribes, for 1,000 years, they've been called to the task. They've taken the burden of trying to lead a group of people in a way that God has asked them to do. God gave them a base set of commands, a base set of commandments, a base set of rules to live by. But as the context grew, as society grew, you have different scenarios. You have these little nuances, and so you add addendums to it. You add subcontext, and you add all these additional rules to help keep everybody in the right way with God. And what that tends to lead to, all these rules, all these regulations, you have to have somebody in place to enforce these rules and regulations. And in this instance, that would be the priests and the scribes. And over time, you can almost see how their original intentions, they wanted to get it right. They wanted to be there and shepherd the people so they wouldn't have a fallout like they have had in the past. But in with that, there becomes a point where power can start to turn to a comfort, can start to turn to, I'm used to these people listening to me, taking my every word and acting upon it. And what we end up with is this barrier to entry where the only way to God is through the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and through this arduous task that a lot of people can't get to. So they've been doing this practice for a long time, and Jesus comes to town and flips all that over. Pun intended, he flips the tables. He tells people that the way to the Father is through me. Love each other as you love yourselves, and keep my commandments. And what that does is that strips, that wears away at the foundation blocks of what the Pharisees and Sadducees have been living. Let's take it, now that we know where that background is coming from, let's take it from a modern context. Let's say we have a comfort level with how we're living, with how we deal with certain situations, with how we understand this or that, and then all of a sudden somebody comes along and in a fraction of the time that we've understood ourselves and our understanding of a certain theme, a certain way of life or anything like that, and he comes in and he tells you you're doing it wrong. That would be a lot to take in. You can't take it in right away. It's going to take you some time to chew on it and to really dive in when you've been set in your ways for so long. And then Jesus comes in and delivers these 7 woes and says, you're flying your plane upside down. Your kingdom values are upside down. He says, you are causing my children to stumble to me, and in doing so, you are leaving yourself by the wayside in order to get scooped up and thrown into the fire. And it's a scary realization when you're a high priest or anything like that, or when you're sitting in a place of authority and all you want to do is the right thing by your people and by your God. But then there's a switch. You've been working this way for 1,000 years. You've been leading these people by these rules that you've created along the way. And in 3 years, somebody comes in and turns everything around, flips everything upside down, tells you you're doing yourself a disservice. You are causing people to stray. You are creating a barrier that is you cannot overcome it. And so the first thing you want to do is the first thing you want to critique. You want to poke and prod and really get at what that event is that's causing your foundation to erode. Now, where we start to get to the villainy part is where things start happening in the shadows, where they conspire to kill Jesus in the shadows. And the fact that they want to hide it from the crowds, hide it from the masses for fear of an uproar, that's when you absolutely know that there is no turning back from this. But when you've built yourself up, not yourself per se, when you've built your life up, you've built these foundation blocks that you know are good and secure, and they've led you, they've held your family, they've held your community together for so long. And then you get the waves of Jesus, the testing waves, and they come and they start hitting your foundation and they start eroding away, and you see portions of your foundation start to fail. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at that event that's caused that erosion. You're going to look at you're going to break it down to the smallest point. And in this case, that's Jesus. So when you get these testing waves that come in, your first inclination might be to build a wall, build a wave break around the bay, and to essentially squelch or even kill the waves before they even reach your foundation. And I don't think that's a very large jump for us to look into our own lives and see where in our own lives have we seen something come into our lives that challenges our core beliefs, that challenges the way we've seen things in our lives for however long we've been here, and the way we've understood it for 30, 40, 20, 50 years, and all of a sudden something comes in one instant, in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it starts to erode away at your foundation. The first and easiest thing to do is to cut it off where it started, to shove it back out the door, because you're comfortable here. You understand this. You've spent so long trying to understand it that when something comes in and asks you to reevaluate your foundations, it's a scary thing. And it's not something that a lot of us, myself mainly, can't find it a tough hill to climb. But it's necessary, because what's happening is those foundations that we've built up, the foundations that the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Sanhedrin, they've built up, it's causing people to stumble. Jesus is telling us that it's causing people to stumble and fall away from God. He talks about the destruction of, he foretells the destruction of the temple and the complete ruin of everything that they've known. And I really think that it can be taken in sort of a corollary to our lives and how we look at things. Can we reevaluate? Can we do what Jesus is asking us to do, to really look at what we're doing, making sure we're flying our plane on the correct course and not upside down, taking everything else we know with it. You with this is that Jesus is telling us to love one another as you love yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And if we can't love our neighbor, we have to love ourselves first. And if we can't do that, I really think we need to reevaluate, sit down in a quiet place and think about the base rules, the basic task that Jesus has called us to do, to love our neighbors as ourselves, and to love our God with all our heart and our mind and our soul. Thank you.